For 24 years, Anna Hayes lived without the comfort of family or the padding of wealth. The death of her estranged billionaire grandfather seemed like a final insult when she inherited a rotting, sinking boat instead of his sprawling estates. Yet hidden deep within that decaying wood lay a secret inheritance, $200 million. Poverty has a distinct smell. For Anna Hayes, it smelled like industrial bleach, stale diner coffee, and the overwhelming anxiety of unopened mail. Working double shifts at a diner in South Boston barely kept the lights on in her cramped basement apartment. She was 24, burdened with $45,000 in medical debt from a mother she had lost too soon, and absolutely alone in the world. Everything shifted on a rainy Tuesday when a heavy cream-colored envelope arrived via certified courier. The return address was embossed in thick gold lettering, Cravath Swain and Moore LLP, one of the most prestigious corporate law firms in Manhattan. Anna's grandfather, Arthur Pendleton, was dead. Arthur was a titan of industry. He had made a fortune in offshore drilling and international logistics, building an empire that rivaled the GDP of small nations. Yet Anna had never met the man. Her mother, Sarah, had been abruptly disowned for marrying a mechanic with no pedigree. When Anna's parents died in a tragic car accident, Arthur didn't attend the funeral. He didn't intervene when Anna was swallowed by the overwhelmed foster care system. He simply let her vanish into the cracks of society. A week after receiving the letter, Anna found herself sitting in a mahogany-paneled boardroom on the 50th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper. The contrast was suffocating. Her worn-out boots sank into plush Persian rugs, and she pulled her thrift store cardigan tighter around her shoulders as she surveyed the room. Across from her sat Arthur's recognized family, her aunt Beatrice, dripping in Cartier diamonds, and two cousins wearing custom Italian suits. They looked at Anna not with sympathy, but with thinly veiled disgust. The estate lawyer, a stern man named Mr. Abernathy, cleared his throat and broke the heavy silence. "We are here to execute the final will and testament of Arthur Pendleton. The assets have been meticulously divided according to his strict instructions." For the next hour, Anna listened as unimaginable wealth was casually handed out. Beatrice inherited a sprawling estate in Aspen and a massive trust fund managed by J.P. Morgan Chase. Her cousins received controlling shares in the family's logistics company and multi-million-dollar portfolios. Anna sat quietly, her heart pounding. Even a fraction of this wealth would change her life. Just enough to clear her debt. Just enough to breathe. "Mr." Abernathy finally turned to Anna, pushing his spectacles up his nose. "And to my estranged granddaughter, Anna Hayes." Abernathy read aloud, his voice devoid of emotion. "I leave the asset registered under Pendleton Maritime as the Iron Siren. It is a 1978 commercial fishing vessel currently moored at Slip 42 in Gloucester, Massachusetts." Silence fell over the boardroom. Beatrice let out a short, stifled laugh. "A boat," Anna whispered, her voice trembling. Is there a trust attached to it, or a maintenance fund?" "No, Ms. Hayes," Abernathy replied coldly, sliding a single thin folder across the polished table. "You received the deed to the vessel as is, along with the slip fees, which I must inform you are currently 3 months in arrears." Anna opened the folder. Inside was a Polaroid photograph of the boat. It was a disaster. The paint was peeling in massive sheets, the wheelhouse windows were shattered, and the hull was thick with barnacles and rot. It wasn't a luxury yacht. It was a dying, obsolete trawler, half submerged in coastal mud. She had traveled all the way to New York, spending her meager savings on a bus ticket, only to inherit a liability. Not only was she completely broke, but her billionaire grandfather's final act was to insult her and saddle her with docking fees she couldn't afford. She left the law firm with the deed crumpled in her fist, tears of bitter frustration burning her eyes. 3 days later, Anna stood on the damp, splintering docks of Gloucester, Massachusetts. The biting coastal wind whipped through her thin jacket, bringing with it the sharp, unmistakable stench of low tide and rotting kelp. The iron siren was in far worse condition than the photograph had suggested. The vessel was a colossal, rusting ghost ship. It was aggressively listing to its port side, its deep wooden hull groaning pathetically against the moorings with every swell of the dark water. To Anna, it didn't look like an inheritance. It looked like a watery grave. "It's a tragic sight, isn't it?" Anna spun around. Standing a few feet away was a man in a pristine charcoal trench coat. He looked entirely out of place among the rusted winches and smell of fish guts. "I'm Gregory Pierce," he said, extending a manicured hand. "I represent Harborview Development Group. We buy up derelict slips and salvage old vessels for municipal harbor restoration." "Anna," she replied hesitantly, keeping her hands in her pockets. "You know this boat?" "Unfortunately, yes." Gregory sighed, looking at the sinking ship with feigned pity. "It's an absolute hazard. The city has been trying to get it condemned for years. The wood is infested with marine borers, the engine block is flooded with salt water, and frankly, if it sinks completely, the environmental cleanup fines alone will bankrupt whoever owns it." Anna felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Cleanup fines." "Listen, Anna." Gregory continued, his tone softening into what sounded like genuine concern. "I know Arthur Pendleton left this mess to you. It was a cruel joke, but I can help you out of it. My firm is willing to take the deed off your hands today. We'll absorb the back-owed slip fees, handle the salvage, and I will personally write you a check for $15,000 for the scrap rights." $15,000. To a billionaire, it was pocket change. To Anna, it was a lifeline. It wouldn't wipe out all her debt, but it would stop the collection calls. It would pay her rent for a year. It was the safest, most logical escape from this nightmare. Gregory pulled a sleek leather folio from his briefcase, unzipping it to reveal a prepared contract. "I have the paperwork right here. Just sign on the dotted line, and the money will be wired to your account by the end of the business day." He handed her a gold fountain pen. Anna reached out her fingers, trembling slightly. She looked at the pen, then at the contract, then up at the rotting hull of the iron siren. "Hold your fire, girl." A gruff, booming voice echoed down the wooden pier. An elderly man, heavily weathered by the sea and wearing a faded yellow slicker, marched toward them. His face was a map of deep wrinkles, and he glared at Gregory with absolute contempt. "Tobias," Gregory said, his polite smile instantly vanishing, replaced by a cold sneer. "This is private business." "The harbor is my business, Pierce." The old man spat, turning his attention to Anna. "I'm Tobias, the harbor master here. Don't sign a damn thing this vulture hands you." "He's offering me $15,000 to take it off my hands," Anna said defensively. "The boat is sinking, Tobias. I can't afford to keep it." Tobias chuckled a dry, rattling sound. 15 grand Pierce here works for a shell corporation out of Boston. They've been circling this slip like starving gulls since the day your grandfather died. Ask yourself, girl, why would a high-rise developer want a rotting wooden trawler badly enough to have contracts drawn up before you even set foot in this town? Anna froze. She looked at Gregory. The friendly, concerned demeanor had completely melted off the man's face, leaving behind a sharp, predatory intensity. "She's drowning in debt, old man," Gregory snapped. "I am offering her a clean exit. If she doesn't sell today, the offer drops to 0, and she can deal with the city's EPA fines when that garbage scow hits the ocean floor." I need to think about it, Anna said, taking a step back and handing the pen back to Gregory. Gregory's jaw tightened. Don't be a fool, Anna. You have until tomorrow morning. He turned on his heel and stormed off down the pier, his expensive shoes clicking aggressively against the wood. Anna turned to the harbour master. Why did you stop me? I need that money. Your grandfather was a ruthless, cold-hearted bastard, Tobias said, plainly pulling a pipe from his pocket. But he wasn't stupid. For the last 5 years of his life, Arthur Pendleton came down to this dock in the dead of night. No bodyguards, no lawyers, just him, a flashlight and a set of heavy steel lock boxes. Anna's brow furrowed in confusion. He came here to this wreck. Every month. Tobias nodded, pointing the stem of his pipe at the sinking ship. He spent millions retrofitting a commercial dragger that hasn't seen open water since the 90s. Whatever he left you, girl, it ain't just a boat. Driven by a sudden, desperate surge of curiosity, Anna insisted on boarding the vessel. Tobias rigged a sturdy gangplank, warning her to step only on the reinforced crossbeams. The interior of the Iron Siren was a nightmare of mold and standing water. The air was thick and hard to breathe. They waded through ankle-deep sludge into the captain's quarters. It looked thoroughly looted. Drawers were ripped open, and charts were scattered across the floor. Pierce's men have already been sniffing around, Tobias grumbled, scanning the room. Anna ran her hands along the molded wooden panels of the captain's desk. As she leaned her weight against a heavy brass fitting on the side, she heard a sharp click. A false bottom beneath the desk drawers suddenly dropped open. Inside was a sealed, heavy-duty waterproof tube. Anna pulled it out, her hands shaking, and unscrewed the cap. Inside wasn't money or gold. It was a set of highly complex architectural blueprints, stamped with the seal of a private naval engineering firm in Geneva. She unrolled the thick vellum paper over the ruined desk. "What am I looking at?" Anna asked, tracing the white lines. Tobias leaned over, his eyes widening in shock. "I'll be damned! These are structural schematics for the Iron Siren." "Look here." Anna pointed to the cross-section of the lower hull. According to the blueprints, the rotting exterior they saw from the dock was merely a shell. Beneath the decaying wooden planks, stretching across the entire length of the vessel's underbelly, was a secondary custom-built titanium vault, a massive hidden compartment that was completely sealed off from the water and the rest of the ship. And according to a handwritten note attached to the corner of the blueprint in her grandfather's distinctive handwriting, it required a 6-digit code to open. Anna stared down at the dark, sludgy water pooling around her boots, realizing with absolute certainty that she was standing on top of a very dangerous secret. Night fell over Gloucester Harbour like a heavier, suffocating woolen blanket. The coastal fog rolled in, thick and tasting of salt, obscuring the streetlights along the pier. Inside the damp, swaying cabin of the Iron Siren, Anna and Tobias huddled over the blueprints, illuminated only by the harsh white beam of a heavy-duty DeWalt work lantern. The schematics were incredibly detailed. Arthur Pendleton hadn't just modified the boat, he had practically hollowed it out. Beneath the floorboards of the engine room, nestled directly above the massive rusted block of a Caterpillar 3406 marine diesel engine, lay the entrance to the titanium vault. "We need to get down there," Anna said, her voice barely a whisper above the groaning of the wooden hull. "If Gregory Pierce knows what's on this boat, he isn't going to wait until morning. He knows I'm desperate. He probably expects me to cave." Tobias grunted, pulling a heavy steel crowbar from his canvas tool bag. "Pierce is a corporate shark, but he's not working alone. I did some digging on my ham radio while you were staring at those papers. Harborview Development Group is a subsidiary. The parent company is a holding firm, managed by your Aunt Beatrice." Anna felt the blood drain from her face. Beatrice, but she just inherited a fortune. Why would she care about a scrap boat? Because Arthur wasn't just wealthy, he was paranoid. Tobias explained, leading the way down the narrow, terrifyingly steep steps into the ship's belly. Rumor in the shipping industry was that Arthur liquidated a massive portion of his offshore assets 2 years ago. We're talking hundreds of millions. The IRS couldn't find it. His ex-wives couldn't find it. Beatrice probably tore that Manhattan penthouse apart, looking for the cash only to realize the old man hid it where no billionaire would ever step foot a rotting fishing trawler. They reached the engine room. It was a mechanical graveyard. The smell of ancient diesel fuel bilge water and rusted iron was overpowering. Tobias handed Anna the lantern and wedged his crowbar under a set of heavy bolted steel floor plates directly aft of the engine block. With a loud metallic screech that made Anna wince, the rusted bolts gave way. Tobias hauled the heavy grate aside, kicking up a cloud of toxic-smelling dust. Anna aimed the lantern downward. There, contrasting wildly with the decay of the wooden ship, was a pristine, brushed titanium hatch. It looked like the airlock of a modern submarine. In the center of the heavy metal door was a digital, weather-proofed Schlager keypad. A tiny red LED light blinked slowly in the darkness, indicating that the internal battery array, likely military-grade lithium, was still fully functional. 6 digits, Tobias muttered, wiping grease from his forehead. You get 3 tries on these military safes before the internal circuits fry themselves and engage a mechanical lockdown. If that happens, you'd need a plasma torch and 3 weeks to cut through. Anna knelt in the sludge, staring at the glowing red keys. 6 digits. What would he use? She murmured to herself. I didn't know him. I never even spoke to him on the phone. My mother's birthday. Try it, Tobias said, gently. Anna entered 041268, April 12th, 1968. The keypad let out a sharp, angry buzz. The light flashed yellow. Attempt 1 failed. Damn it, Anna breathed, her hands shaking. Okay, what about the day he died? Or the day he founded Pendleton Maritime? Too obvious, Tobias warned, leaning against the rusted bulkhead. If Beatrice guessed those, she would have hired mercenaries to rip this hatch open weeks ago. Think about it, Anna. He left the deed to you. Not your mother. He left it specifically in your name. He wanted you to find this. Anna closed her eyes, the oppressive silence of the engine room pressing against her eardrums. Why her? He had ignored her existence while she bounced between foster homes. He had let her drown in $45,000 of hospital debt after her mother succumbed to cancer. He was a monster. Unless he had been watching. My mother told me once, Anna began, her voice cracking in the damp air, that the day I was born, Arthur sent a package to the hospital. My dad threw it in the trash without opening it. My mother always wondered what was inside. She said it was the last time Arthur ever tried to make contact. She looked down at the keypad. Her birth date, August 14th, 1999. With a trembling index finger, she pressed the keys. 081499. The keypad remained silent for an agonizing 3 seconds. Then the red light turned a brilliant solid green. A heavy hydraulic hiss echoed through the cramped space as 4 massive steel locking bolts retracted from the titanium frame. Before Anna could reach for the handle, a heavy thud echoed from the deck above them. Tobias instantly killed the lantern, plunging them into absolute darkness. Anna held her breath. Above them, the unmistakable sound of heavy work boots thudded against the wooden deck. Multiple people. Hello down there? Gregory Pierce's voice rang out, echoing down the ventilation shafts. It didn't sound polite or corporate anymore. It was laced with venom. "I know you're in there, Anna. We saw the flashlight from the pier." Tobias silently drew a heavy Smith & Wesson marine flare gun from his coat pocket, gesturing for Anna to stay perfectly still. "The offer is off the table, Anna." Gregory shouted, his footsteps moving toward the wheelhouse. "I have a crew of salvage men out here. We have legal jurisdiction to board condemned vessels in this harbor. If you don't come up here with the deed right now, we are going to chain this wreck to a tugboat and drag it into deep water. You can sink with it." Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. She was terrified, but staring at the green light on the titanium hatch, her terror violently morphed into rage. For her entire life, wealthy, powerful people had dictated her suffering. Now this corporate lackey was trying to steal the one thing that finally belonged to her. "Watch the stairs," Anna whispered to Tobias. She turned back to the hatch, grabbed the heavy recessed handle and pulled. It swung open silently on perfectly oiled hinges. Anna dropped down into the hidden compartment. It was a long, narrow tunnel, stretching the length of the ship's keel. The air inside was completely dry and smelled faintly of ozone and expensive paper. Motion sensor LED strips flickered to life as she stepped inside, illuminating a space that looked like a high-tech bank vault. Lining the walls were dozens of black waterproof Pelican transit cases, each secured with heavy brass padlocks. At the far end of the vault sat a simple teakwood desk. On it lay a single brass key and a thick leather-bound ledger. Anna grabbed the key and threw open the nearest Pelican case. She gasped, stumbling backward. The case was packed tight with neat, vacuum-sealed stacks of Credit Suisse 100-ounce gold bars. The dull, mesmerizing gleam of the precious metal reflected in the LED lights. Frantically, she opened the next case. Bundles of United States Treasury bearer bonds, each stamped in denominations of $100,000. The next case held dozens of velvet pouches. She tore one open, pouring a handful of massive, uncut diamonds into her palm. They were heavy, raw, and worth a fortune. On the desk beneath the ledger was a sealed envelope with her name written in Arthur's sharp cursive. She ripped it open. "Now, you are reading this. You had the grit to look past the rust. Your mother was a fool for walking away from our empire, but she was brave. I was too proud to forgive her and too stubborn to apologize to you. By the time I realized my mistake, I was surrounded by vultures. Your Aunt Beatrice and your cousins are parasites. They would squander the Pendleton legacy in a decade. I could not leave you the company. Their lawyers would have tied you up in litigation until you were bankrupt. So I built a ghost. The assets in this hull total approximately $220 million in untraceable liquid wealth. The gold, the stones, the bonds, they are legally yours under maritime salvage laws and the phrasing of my will. The ledger on this desk contains 50 years of Beatrice's corporate embezzlement and tax fraud. Use it as a shield. Take the money. Disappear. Build your own empire." Arthur tears pricked Anna's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. There was no time for grief, only action. She grabbed the ledger, shoved 3 heavy gold bars into her canvas backpack, and scrambled back up into the engine room. "Tobias," she hissed. The old man was standing at the base of the stairs, the flare gun leveled at the ceiling. "They're trying to crowbar the wheelhouse door," he whispered. "We are out of time." "I have what I need," Anna said, her voice completely transformed. The frightened waitress from South Boston was dead. The granddaughter of Arthur Pendleton had just been born. "Let them in." Tobias blinked in surprise, but lowered the weapon. "Pierce!" Anna screamed up the stairwell. "Stop breaking my boat, I'm coming up." She climbed the stairs, stepping out onto the fog-slicked deck. Gregory Pierce stood near the railing, flanked by 3 massive men carrying pry bars and heavy bolt cutters. Finally decided to be reasonable, Gregory sneered, adjusting the lapels of his coat. "Hand over the deed. You don't get the 15,000 anymore. Consider it a tax for wasting my evening." "I'm not giving you the deed, Gregory," Anna said, calmly, adjusting the straps of her heavy backpack. "Because I just found what my grandfather left in the keel." Gregory's arrogant smirk vanished instantly. He took a step forward, his eyes darting toward his hired muscles. "Take the bag from her. Throw her on the dock." Before the men could move, a blinding spotlight hit them from the water. A massive United States Coast Guard cutter drifted out of the fog, its heavy diesel engines rumbling. The spotlight illuminated the entire deck of the Iron Siren. Over the loudspeaker, a booming, amplified voice echoed across the harbor. "This is the Coast Guard. Stand down and cut your engines. Harbor Master Tobias, do you require assistance?" Tobias stepped out from the shadows of the cabin, a smug grin plastered across his weathered face. "Yeah, boys, got a corporate trespasser trying to board a privately owned vessel with intent to salvage." Gregory went pale. He turned to Anna, panic finally cracking his polished exterior. "You can't keep it," he hissed venomously. "Beatrice will tie you up in court for the next 20 years. We will freeze every orsett you have. You won't see a dime of that money." Anna unzipped her backpack and pulled out the thick, leather-bound ledger, holding it up so Gregory could see the Pendleton crest embossed on the cover. "You tell Aunt Beatrice," Anna said, her voice carrying cold, lethal authority, "that I have Arthur's black book. I have the records of the Cayman Island accounts she used to defraud the IRS in 2018. I have the receipts from the shell companies." Gregory stared at the ledger as if it were a live grenade. "If she ever contacts me..." Anna continued, stepping closer, so Gregory could see the absolute resolve in her eyes. "If she ever sends you or any other lawyer in a cheap suit near me again, I will mail this book directly to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Tell her she can keep the penthouse. I'm keeping the boat." Gregory swallowed hard. The Coast Guard cutter bumped against the side of the trawler, and heavily armed officers began hopping over the railing. Knowing he was entirely beaten, Gregory backed away, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender to the officers. Within an hour, Gregory and his men were escorted off the docks in handcuffs for trespassing and attempted assault. Anna stood on the pier, the cold morning sun beginning to burn through the Atlantic fog. The harbor looked different in the daylight. The Iron Siren still looked like a rusty, sinking nightmare, but to Anna it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Tobias walked up beside her, lighting his pipe. "So, Miss Hayes, what's the plan?" Anna reached into her backpack, pulled out one of the heavy 100-ounce gold bars, and pressed it into the shocked harbor master's hands. "First," Anna smiled, "I'm paying my slip fees. Then we are going to hire a private security firm and a convoy of armored trucks. And after that, I think I'm going to buy a new coat." She turned back to look at the vast open ocean stretching out beyond the harbor breakwater. She had arrived in Gloucester as a victim of her circumstances. She was leaving as the sole master of her fate, holding a $200 million secret that would change her bloodline forever. If you loved this story of Anna turning the tables on her greedy family and securing her $220 million inheritance, smash that like button. What would you do if you found a secret titanium vault in a sinking boat? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who loves a massive plot twist, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible real-life drama and storytelling. See you in the next one.